Hello, BookTube. I've got a little mail for you. A few packages. No manila envelopes. It's all cardboard and boxes. And it all came to me through the rain. It's freezing cold. It's dark as twilight. And it's pouring rain, or at least been on and off pouring rain all day. But I still got some packages, and that's great. And one of them, something in here, is setting off my Steve Spidey sense like crazy. So these could be finished copies, and one of them could be doing the trick. We'll find out. The whole thing ends in a box, so we shall see. What is this first one? Okay. All right, this has a cover blurb by Jonathan Latham. It's by Ryan Chapman. It comes out in late May. It's a debut. Fantastic. Okay, great. And oddly enough, it's called Review Copy Not for Resale. Kind of an odd choice for the title of a debut novel. It's a thin little thing. Ryan Chapman is a Sri Lankan American writer originally from Minneapolis. His works have appeared in the New Yorker, GQ, Book Forum. Great, good for him. And he is the recipient of fellowships from the Vermont Studio Center and the Malay Colony for the Arts. And he lives in upstate New York. I wonder if he's from Vermont. And Publishers Weekly calls Review Copy Not for Resale a funny, excellent debut. Barricaded in a prisoner's computer lab in upstate New York, Chapman's erudite and very incarcerated narrator is writing his final editor's letter for the Holding Pen, a house literary journal some consider, quote, a masterpiece of post-penal literature. With the encroaching riot incited by a poet-cum-escape plan from a recent issue, it's only a matter of time before his fellow prisoners break into the makeshift bunker and interrupt with swift violence. In the meantime, he'll field questions on Reddit and Twitter while live blogging his official accounting of events, relishing his newfound, if short-lived, fame. That sounds really good. That sounds really, really good. Okay, well, this comes out in late May, but I don't think I ever got an advance copy of this, and now I want to read it. I want to read it right away, and it's an hour's work, so I will do that. Today. I will add this to the pile for the weekend reading. Fantastic. Okay, so Ryan Chapman's debut novel, Review Copy Not for Resale. I'm assuming that's the title because it's by far the most prominent thing on the cover. And if it isn't the title, then what would it be? Keep Out You Punk Kids sign posted specifically for book reviewers by a publisher for whom those book reviewers are doing a lot of unpaid publicity work. Nobody would be boneheaded enough to do that. No, that would be just rude and crude. So it must be the title of the book. Seems a little strange. Also, I don't think it's the last time. I don't think it's the first time we've seen this title. Must be really popular. One of those Girl Who type things. I can't think of any other explanation why a publisher would put such a sticker on a book specifically sent to a book reviewer who's doing them a favor. So it must be. It's just a little odd. That's all. A creative lapse. But I'm sure that it doesn't extend to the author. Publishers sometimes are like this. So let's see this next one. It's a little bit soggy. The book may be a little bit damaged. Okay, this is from Farrar, Straus & Giroux. It comes out in late August. It's by Charles Postell, and it's called Equality, An American Dilemma, 1866-1986. 1866 to 1896. Oh, wow. So this is a strict Reconstruction era history. This is equality just in the worst part of its lifespan. When American historian Charles Postell published his book, The Populist Vision, in 2007, it was awarded both the Bancroft Prize and the Frederick Jackson Turner Award. I remember The Populist Vision. I don't think I ever read it. 2007 would have been right when I was starting to get back into reviewing. I think I remember reading about it, but I don't think I ever read it. An eye-opening reconsideration of the late 19th century's populist movement. Postell's book and expertise also made him an apt commentator on contemporary politics over the past decade, from the rise of the Tea Party to the electoral success of Donald Trump. Let's keep in mind that keyword electoral really rubs, okay? Donald Trump had an electoral college success. He lost the election by a huge margin, but he had an electoral college success. I wish they'd added that word. And now FS&G is excited to announce the forthcoming publication of his second book. In Equality, the author presents a history of social movements and collective organizations in the decades immediately following the Civil War. Oh boy, okay. Fantastic. All right. I've read a lot of books on the Reconstruction era, but it sounds like this guy's going to go at it from a slightly more theoretical viewpoint, which can only be to the good. That's fantastic. All right, so a serious work of history for later in what we are euphemistically calling the summer. I've seen no hint of said season, but late August, who knows? We might have a little sunlight by late August. So what have we... Oh, what's this? Is this a paperback release? I think this is a paperback reprint of something that we saw originally. No, this is a paperback original. Oh, and it's lovely. Good Lord, it's lovely. I don't usually say that about American books. Okay, so this is going to be a paperback release coming out in mid-May, just a couple of weeks from now, and it is going to be probably $17, $16. But that doesn't completely break the bank in the way that like $35 would for a new hardcover novel. This is by Dervla McTiernan, who wrote The Ruin, and it's called The Scholar. Look at how pretty this is. Look at that. The trees form a river of light, of a pink light that manages still to be ominous because you've got those eyes of the car. What a lovely composition the cover is. And look at how it's obscured a little by the branches of the trees. It's a foreboding cover. Even before I read a word, I don't know anything about it. That cover is just wonderful. Okay, what have we got here? The author's first novel, The Ruin, was a domestic thriller meets procedural so brilliantly paced it drew comparisons to master of the genre, Tana French. She's a big favorite with a lot of you. I still have not managed to catch Tana French fever somehow. I read her last book, and then a lot of you told me to go back and read the first book in the series, so I did, and I recognize competence when I see it, but it's just my wavelength. She's not doing it, and I don't know if that's going to happen suddenly with some new book, or if it's just going to be one of those authors where I know other people love her in a way that I do not, even though I don't dislike her. A perfect example of that would be the Spencer novels of Robert Parker, who have legions of devoted fans, and they're set in Boston, you would think, but they just have never done it for me. Not the way they do it for their fans. In the author's gripping and atmospheric follow-up, she draws readers deeper into the dark heart of Ireland, this time set against the backdrop of a fiercely competitive world of research and academia, where the brightest minds will stop at nothing to succeed. When Dr. Emma Sweeney discovers the victim of a hit-and-run near Galway University one early morning, she calls her boyfriend, Detective Cormac Riley, summoning him to the scene of a crime that would otherwise have never been assigned to him. Oh, we saw this, and did it have this cover? I would think I would remember it. We saw this. I remember this description. The victim is found carrying the ID of Caroline Darcy, heir to Darcy Therapeutics, Ireland's most powerful pharmaceutical company. Darcy Therapeutics sponsors university research, funds political parties and philanthropy campaigns, and has even funded Emma's own groundbreaking research. As the investigation twists and turns in unexpected ways, Cormac finds himself caught between his loyalty to Emma and his responsibility to uncover the truth, which I wouldn't doubt, since in the circumstances described so far, she might be a suspect. 9 times out of 10, person who reports, person who finds. It's a truism of police work. But it nonetheless valuable for that, and especially if she had a conflicted motive somehow. Furthermore, he's forced to examine himself and question the beliefs he has long held. Who really is Emma? And who is Darcy? Who is telling the truth? Okay, I remember this vaguely. I think we probably got an advance copy of this, although I didn't know that paperback originals got advance copies very often. But I don't remember being as intrigued as this sounds. This sounds really good, and I might be just shallow enough so that the tipping point is the cover. But either way, that goes right to the head of the list. A thriller set in Ireland? Okay. All right, let's move on here. I confess, some of these things are intriguing, but nothing on the level to exhort my spider sense, so that must still be coming. What have we got here? Okay, this comes out in mid-May. I have all the world and everything in it for the pub sheet. What is this? This is a novel. Oh, goodness. Okay, all right. So this is by Catherine Cussett. It looks like this is going to be another paperback original. Yeah, this is going to be another $16 paperback original. Very nice, sturdy thing. This is The Life of David Hockney. Daring and vibrant and always authentically himself, artist David Hockney, off to a rocky start, who recently shattered records for the highest selling piece of art by a living artist at auction for his masterpiece, Portrait of an Artist, Pool with Two Figures. It sold for $90 million. That painting, I'm sure you are all familiar with it. If you're not, if you go to Google, switch over to image search and just type in David Hockney's name, it will come up first. It will be the very first thing. I'm sure you're all familiar with it. You tell me if you think it's worth $90 million. Considering that every kid in America could have a college education for that much money, I don't think you could say that any painting is. But even so, you know what I mean. Well, anyway, that person, David Hockney, is captured in a compelling new hybrid of novel and biography. Oh, no, you don't. No. No. It can be a very accurate novel, or it can be a very novelistic biography, but there is no hybrid between fact and fiction. There's no hybrid between those two. One is accountable and one is not. So, and one is excusable on exactly the grounds that would implicate the other. So you can't have a hybrid of those two. Sorry. This is going to be a novel. It says so right on the cover. This has no element of biography. This is not a biography. The author could have David Hockney grow wings and fly to Mars in the third act, and I couldn't criticize the book unless it was badly done. So, but anyway, this is the pub sheet goes on at absolutely enormous length about David Hockney, but that's what this is. This is a historical novel about David Hockney, and it's translated by Teresa Lavender Fagan. And I really kind of wish my name were Teresa Lavender Fagan. That is a triple threat of a name. And the author, Catherine, I said Cusset, now it's probably Cousset, was born in Paris in 1963. And she's written 13 novels, including one that was shortlisted for the Prix Goncourt. So, okay, so this is another book, another paperback. So these things, if they interest you, and I confess, both of them do sound kind of interesting. I'm not going to go off on a rant about David Hockney's art when the book is a novel. But these two things are coming out really soon, and they're both coming out in attractive paperbacks. So, if they sound interesting to you, you could just go out and experiment on them. I mean, $16 is a lot for a paperback, but it's not that much. You wouldn't notice it if you really liked the book. If you ended up really liking the book, you wouldn't notice the expense. Oh, all right, our number is going up here because this next single envelope had 4 books in it. Wow, that doesn't often happen. Okay, so what have we got here? So it's not 4 more pieces of poetry. Okay, so do I have pub sheets for all of these things, or just a couple? No, I don't. All right, all right, very good. Somebody's saving themselves lots of energy. This is from the University of Chicago Press. Is an umbrella under which shelter many smaller presses, and this is from Seagal Books. This is these 4 summer releases of theirs of fiction, and I mean, are these all going to be? See, the problem with the pub sheet just tells me that. It just shows me them and tells me that's what they are. It doesn't tell me anything else about them, and there's nothing else in these books, so I don't know if these are all going to be hardcovers, or if these are going to come out in paperbacks as well. That would certainly tip the scales. If we had 6 paperback original new novels coming out, that would certainly be unprecedented, I would think. But anyway, let's see what we have here. So the first one is called Ice by Sonala Ibrahim, translated by Margaret Litvin. Ice, which comes out in July. The year is 1973. An Egyptian historian, Dr. Shikri, pursues a year of non-degree graduate studies in Moscow, the presumed heart of the socialist utopia in 1973. It was a diseased heart in 1973, but still true. Through his eyes, the reader receives a guided tour of the sordid stagnation of Brezhnev-era Soviet life. The intra-Soviet ethnic tensions, Russian refugees unable to afford retirees unable to afford a tin of meat, a trio of drunks splitting a bottle of vodka on the sidewalk. Oh boy. Okay. All right. Shukri records all this in the same numbly factual style familiar to fans of the author's book That Smell, punctuating it with the only redeeming source of beauty available, classical music LPs, newly acquired Russian vocabulary, achingly beautiful women, and strong Georgian tea. Okay, so this is based on the author's own experiences, but it is a novel coming out in July. I have heard rumors, I have heard rumbles, that there is a gigantic Brezhnev-era Soviet novel about a lot of those subjects: the squalor, the poverty, the dirt, the lack of imagination, the feeling that this is a stagnant system and yet not glorious. I have heard rumbles that there already exists in Russian a Soviet-era novel that is enormous. And I have heard one friend of mine, I have one friend who lives in Russia. She's lived in Russia her whole life. She's an ardent Russian citizen, loves her country, has periodically from time to time loved its various governments. And for a long time, she worked in the Politburo. And she is my main source for this, and she tells me that it's great, that it's the Gulag Archipelago, it's War and Peace. It's a great Russian, it's Life and Fate. She says there's a great Brezhnev-era Russian novel that is kicking around. Publishers know about it. She's not currently aware that it has ever been published in Russian, but she is just expecting any day that it will break in the West and will be a runaway hit. And I tend to believe her. Her instincts tend to be good. Her instinct to one particular thing in Russian history was dead on perfect almost to the day. But anyway, this next one is Mr. K Released by Matej Vishnik, translated by Josefina Komparali. From the Czech, I assume. Mr. K Released. Mirroring Romania's drastic transition from totalitarianism to Western-style freedom in the late 1980s, Mr. K Released captures the disturbingly surreal feeling that many newly liberated prisoners face when they leave captivity. Employing his trademark playful absurdity, the author introduces us to Mr. K, a Kafkaesque figure who has been imprisoned for years for an undisclosed crime in a penitentiary with mysterious tunnels. One day he finds himself unexpectedly released. Unable to comprehend his sudden liberation, he becomes traumatized by the realities of freedom. Okay, and the author is an award-winning Romanian-French playwright. So I don't know, was this translated from the French or from the Romanian? I'm assuming from the Romanian. The book does not tell me. Let's see. Anything at all? Jeez. Okay, so Seagal books. I've got some questions for you. Your publicity, your copyright page, Seagal books, has got to include more than this. What am I supposed to do with that? Doodle? Am I supposed to do a doodle of Franz Kafka? I want to know. I mean, Seagal books 2018. Okay, but what was the original? And where was it published, and when, and by whom, and what language? But still, again, it sounds fascinating. And this next one, tiny little thing, My Mother's Tears by Mikkel Liges, translated by Tess Lewis. My Mother's Tears, with subtle, bemused humor and an unerring air for human frailty. The author is known for his tender writing about the hidden tensions within families, the awkwardness of adolescence, and the drama of intimacy between friends and lovers. This is his 5th novel. The adult narrator of the book has returned to clean out his childhood home after his mother's death. In 30 short chapters, I would say so, each focused on a talismanic object or resonant episode, the narrator tries to solve the mystery behind the flood of tears with which his strikingly beautiful and intelligent and inscrutable mother greeted his birth. And the author is Swiss, and he's written 12 works of fiction and several radio plays, and he won the Swiss Literature Prize in 2017. And that's not small. that's a big accomplishment. A country as literate as Switzerland. That for the Swiss, that they're discriminating readers. They don't have a whole lot to choose from, but still, okay. This is a tiny little thing. All right. I do not know if I don't have any information. Oh wait. Okay, so this might tell me. Okay, all right. This one is coming out as a hardcover for $20, and so is this one. Mr. K comes out as a hard. Okay, so these are hardcover fiction releases. They're Seagal books though, so I don't know how readily you're going to see them in your bookstore. And then this is the last one. Only a Lodger and Hardly That, by Vesna Main. A fictional autobiography. Okay, and this apparently is not translated. Is this one not translated? No translator seems to be listed. Okay, no. All right, so it doesn't look like this is translated. A novel in 5 parts, Only a Lodger and Hardly That, puts Vesna Main's power of beautiful observation on full display as she explores how writing stories about one's ancestors is the key route to learning about and fashioning one's own identity. And she is a Croatian writer living in London and France, and apparently writing in English. She was previously lecturer at universities in Nigeria and the United Kingdom, and she has also worked at the BBC and as a college teacher. So those are four extremely exotic works. And our fifth, or four works of translation, apparently the Croatian writer wrote on her own, but that is an amazing blast of summer unconventional fiction. And of course none of them triggered my Steve Spider sense, so it has to be this last one, which is a big heavy box from Princeton University Press. So it could be a finished copy of something, and maybe it's a finished copy of something that I really liked, something like that. Okay, yeah, this is the one that was doing it. This is indeed. This comes out in now. It's out already. It just came out this Tuesday. Oh my! All right, this is the finished copy. How wonderful. Okay, this is out. It's brand new in your bookstores. It will be murderously expensive, just murderously so. Yeah, this is $40. And this is Boston, the city-state of Boston, by Mark Peterson. I don't think my review of this is run yet in the Christian Science Monitor. Of course, I had to review this book. It's a great big thing. It's beautifully done. It's really, really, really good. The author, in a book this big, especially about one city, you could easily expect doldrums. I've read many, many books like this, and there are doldrums even in the most fascinating city. There are precious few of them in this. This is actually an engaging read from start to finish, and the author remembers to switch up his game. This is not just the Tea Party and political Boston. All the aspects of my beloved city, my favorite place on earth, are covered fairly well here. This is going to be the go-to single-volume history of Boston in its heyday. For the foreseeable future, I would think. It's 1630 to 1865. In the second half of the 19th century, New York became a better harbor, and so superseded Boston as the number one city on the eastern seacoast. And then, when New York threw bridges across its rivers and bound up its boroughs, it became the number one mega city in the world for a long time. And it's a hard thing. You want to ruin a New Yorker's day, get them all tetchy so they don't pay for lunch. Point out to them how far behind New York is now from the other mega metropolises in the rest of the world. Cities that most New Yorkers who live and breathe in the canyons of the city have never even heard of, that are 5 times the size of New York, 5 times the business, 5 times the industry, 5 times the variety, all that stuff. There's still a magic to New York City, but it's a magic that was born and came to fruition from the 20s to the 50s. And New Yorkers don't like to hear that. They don't like to think that they themselves are now Boston. They expect that if they are, it will happen from another American city, and they're wrong. That's the only part they're wrong about, is that but New York has been firmly superseded by other cities in other countries. But nevertheless, for the heyday that's mentioned here, from the founding all the way to the American Civil War, Boston was the greatest city in America, by far. Everything happened in Boston. All science, all art, all culture, all music, all government, everything, all innovations of any kind, social, medical, political, civic, they all happened in Boston. You trace it back far enough, you will see how many firsts the city has. A lot more than the tour guides tell you when you take the swan boat tour through Boston. And this is it. This is what was triggering my spider sense, because I have an advanced copy of this that's falling apart. This is too big and heavy to be an ARC. And the thing I got before that, I think we might have seen it on this channel, was 3 spiral-bound, this book broken up into 3 spiral-bound, unbound galley pages. And I neither one of those really works to put in my library of Boston books, and this one does. So that is what was doing it. So there you go. The city-state of Boston. Heartily recommend it to any of you who are interested in the greatest city in the history of the world. Then, I'm not going to do these individually. A whole swath of expat, of foreign literature, 1 written in English and the other 3 translated, from all parts of all sentiments and all parts of the Western world. That is fantastic. Then The Life of David Hockney, also a translated novel. Then The Scholar, a thriller set in Ireland. Then Equality by Charles Postell. This is a history of Reconstruction era political grappling with the concept of all men are created equal, which really became trouble after it was made literal with the Emancipation Proclamation. And finally, by Ryan Chapman's fictional debut, a slim little thing called Review Copy Not for Resale, about a guy who's live casting a prison riot before, in the minutes that he thinks, the minutes before they break into his room and, kill him. Sounds utterly fascinating. So a couple of these go on the list right away. I'm not going to reread Boston today or this weekend, although I will reread it now that I have a nice hardcover. But the prison novel and The Scholar, right at the top of the list for me, even though they're fiction. They're not long. They won't add much to my weekend list. But anyway, I'll wrap this up for now. But I'll see you soon. Thank you, BookTube.